Jazakallah khairan for our media team for creating this beautiful presentation of ISIP, our international movement. All right, dear brothers and sisters, Bismillah, wa alhamdulillah, wa salawat wa salam ala Rasulullah wa alihi wa sahbihi wa min wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to welcome you all to today's book launch. This is our inaugural session for this year as well. As ISIP, we conduct twice a month lectures in English in our international team. And this is our first lecture for this year. And we're very honored to partner with IAIP, the International Association of Islamic Psychology, and Dr. Haque and Dr. Abdallah Rothman for this book launch of the new book that both of these excellent scholars have edited, which is called Clinical Applications of Islamic Psychology. And hopefully we will be able to also perhaps present some of the authors if they're part of the participants today, so they can also give some insights from their own clinical work and how they are applying Islamic psychology. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to first and foremost welcome you all to the session today. ISIP is an international movement with members from all over the world and with local and regional chapters and task forces that are capturing interests and objectives that are in line with normalizing Islamic psychology all over the world. And we're so honored to have you all with us, dear excellent participants and members from all over the world. Feel free to enjoy and learn from the session today, and feel free to also write your questions in the Zoom chat. If you have any questions to Dr. Amber or Dr. Abdallah Rothman, please write to Sister Fatima Ahmed in the Zoom chat, and she will compile these questions, and these questions will be asked to Dr. Abdallah Rothman and Dr. Amber Haque in the end of the session today, inshallah. We will also have some book giveaways, which is quite exciting. So that will be, we will inform more about the book giveaway later throughout the session, inshallah. And yeah, I think that's it for now with regards to the agenda of the session today. So feel free to use the Zoom chat to ask questions and direct the questions to Sister Fatima Ahmed. Her name is Sister Fatima Ahmed Questions, so you guys can find her. And throughout the session, we will also share some great resources. My colleagues, Sister Shireen Ismail from South Africa and Sister Fatima Ahmed from Canada will share some resources to you guys, and also resources on how you guys can buy the book, and also other resources with regards to Islamic psychology and other resources that could be of benefit for you guys. We will also share a feedback form, because your inputs, dear brothers and sisters, are very crucial for us as we are developing this movement. So feel free to also use the feedback form and share your nasiha to us, inshallah. We're very honored to have you all with us, and thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, inshallah. Bismillah. I want to thank Sister Fatima Ahmed and Sister Shireen Ismail, my dear colleagues from ISIP, for the amazing work that they're doing. Also, Sister Nadira, who is one of our project coordinators for the International Lecture Series. I also want to thank all my brothers and sisters and colleagues and all of our local and regional chapters and task forces for their excellent contributions. So it's just a brief Zoom etiquette. Please keep your cameras on if possible. It's always nice to see each other. And if you want, you can use the gallery view, because then the sohbah is even more strengthened when we can see each other and connect with one another. Please do not record or do any screenshots. We will offer the recording on our ISIP's YouTube channel within a couple of days. And if our scholars, Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Amber, want to share any slides, we will email it out to all of you who registered for the session earlier, inshallah. And keep muted at all times. We will ask your questions through the Zoom chat. We will compile all the questions, and then we will refer them to Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Amber, inshallah. If you want, you can rename yourself. It's always nice to see all the countries that you guys are representing, just to see the diversity in this international movement. And if you guys have a need of live transcriptions, please press the More button in the Zoom application and request for it, and then we will give you guys access to the transcription as well, inshallah. Briefly, we just wanted to introduce ourselves at ISIP. ISIP tried to be an inclusive space designed to connect people with diverse backgrounds interested in Islamic psychology. We aim to disseminate knowledge, share resources, and discuss best practices in a free and accessible manner. So everything that we do, we try to make it affordable and accessible, hence it's free. And we also try to be a platform, dear brothers and sisters, to enable further development of people's personal and professional interests, studies and understanding of Islamic psychology within their communities and countries of origins. So ways that you guys can participate, dear brothers and sisters, feel free to subscribe to ISIP's YouTube channel. We have over 250 lectures with some of the leading scholars in the field of Islamic psychology in 10 different languages. So feel free to subscribe. We will share the link to the YouTube channel in the Zoom chat. You can also join our Islamic psychology WhatsApp groups for discussions and resource sharing. The link will be also shared in the Zoom chat and emailed out to all of you. And you can become a member of ISIP, which is free of charge, of course, via our website at www.isip.foundation, where you can also get access to our digital library with over 1,000 resources connected to Islamic psychology. And this is the link to our Islamic psychology WhatsApp groups. And if you have any ideas of other projects you guys want to develop, or if you want to establish a local chapter in your country and region, and we do not have any local chapter there, feel free to reach out to us as well through our website or through email, and we will share the resources in the Zoom chat. We're very honored at ISIP to conduct this book launch together with IAIP, the International Association of Islamic Psychology, which is doing such an amazing work in advocating and normalizing the field of Islamic psychology all over the world. Two of the leading scholars in the movement of Islamic psychology is Dr. Amber Haque and Dr. Abdallah Rothman. And now, without any further ado, we will present them, and then we will hand it over to Dr. Abdallah Rothman, who will briefly present IAIP. And after that, Dr. Amber Haque will present a bit about the book that they have been editing together, and some of the content of the book will be shared with all of you as participants, inshallah. So Dr. Amber Haque is the Program Director for Muslim Family Services at ICNA Relief USA. He's a psychologist by profession and obtained his master's and PhD from Michigan. And after practicing psychology in Michigan for over 12 years, he switched to academia and taught as a professor of clinical psychology in 5 countries. He has more than 70 publications plus 9 edited books to his credit. And Dr. Haque has a keen interest in Islamic psychology and teaches a modern trends course, an IEP course at the Cambridge Muslim College. And I had personally the honor to study under Dr. Amber Haque, which has been such a blessing to learn from his vast amount of knowledge and experience. We also have Dr. Abdallah Rothman, who is the principal, or used to be the principal. Sorry, this is a old bio. So he used to be the principal of Cambridge Muslim College and holds an MA in psychology from Antioch University and a PhD in psychology from Kingston University, London. His clinical practice and his academic research focus on approaching counseling and psychotherapy from within an Islamic paradigm and establishing an indigenous Islamic theoretical orientation to human psychology that is grounded in the knowledge of the soul from the Islamic tradition. Dr. Rothman is visiting professor of psychology at Zain University, Istanbul, International Islamic University of Islamabad, and Al Nilain University in Khartoum, Sudan, and is a co-founder together with Professor Malik Badri of IAIP, the International Association of Islamic Psychology. And I also had the honor to study under Dr. Abdallah, and mashallah, both Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Amber are excellent teachers and scholars that are supporting many students and practitioners all over the world. All right, how to get the book, dear brothers and sisters. You can buy it on Amazon, so feel free to scan this QR code if you want, and then you can get access to the Amazon link. And of course, you can participate in the book giveaway that we will do later in this book launch, inshallah. Just a brief information about the book giveaway, and Sister Fatima, one of my colleagues, she will inform more throughout the session. We want you guys to write this short, maybe 2-3 sentences, paragraph, on how will this book be benefit for the Ummah and for your own clinical work as well. And then we want you guys to email this to contact@isip.foundation. And the deadline will be Wednesday, the 17th of January. That's actually my birthday, by the way, so subhanAllah. All right. We also want to just share a little bit information about our upcoming sessions. So Sunday, the 21st of January, We will have a Resilient and Healing Circle, focusing on the situation in Palestine, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring ease to all of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And also on January the 27th, the Saturday at 1:30 p.m. GMT, we will have a lecture about addiction, Islam, and family life with Dr. Abida Ahmed from the UK. All right, dear brothers and sisters, this is it from me. Please forgive us as organizers for any shortcomings and make dua for us, and please fill out the short feedback form that will be shared in the Zoom chat as well. And I will stop sharing my screen now. And without any further ado, allow me to present Dr. Abdallah. Feel free to take over, Dr. Abdallah. The floor is yours. We're very honored to have you here with us.
Jazakallah khair, Sayyid Jamaluddin. Thank you so much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And also to be hosted by ISIP. MashaAllah, we're always very impressed and supportive of everything that ISIP has done and is doing, and it's just an incredible force for the development of the field. And may Allah increase ISIP with benefit and more support and more resources and more madad to push forward to do such great work. I'm speaking now. So I'm now speaking on behalf of International Association of Islamic Psychology. I'll just say a few brief words. I am the co-author of this book, but I will let the senior editor, Dr. Amber, after this speak more about the book. But just to give you a brief, very brief idea of how this book fits in with the larger sort of intentions of the International Association of Islamology and the place that it's positioned in the field as it was situated and envisioned by the founder, Professor Malik Badri. And it's essentially to set standards for the field, both for theory and practice. So looking at certifying training programs, certifying individual practitioners, and establishing a global network so that we can have sort of an umbrella for the field that doesn't dictate how people approach it, but that puts the parameters in place to understand how do we define what gets considered Islamic psychology, that it's connected with the tradition, that it's connected with the ulama, and that there is a body that is able to set the standards for that field. And so this has been an ongoing effort, and it's one that is continuing. And we've been somewhat under the radar and somewhat quiet, but inshallah, there's a lot happening in the works to put together or to put out these standards that are in motion. And so one of the important aspects of that, like any professional association, but also in the development of the field to professionalize it, is putting out publications that aren't necessarily specific to a madhab or minhaj or specific curriculum within Islamic psychology, but looking more globally at the developments of the field that allow for different approaches, different ways that people have approached it. And so the first publication that the IAIP published was in 2021, this book edited by myself and Dr. Amber on Islamic psychology around the globe. And this was, to look at all of the developments that are happening internationally in 17 different countries. And this was a really good start, mashallah, to get an awareness of, oh, wow, look at all of the developments that are happening that we sometimes don't hear about. And this has 17 countries, the thick book. We could have more countries, and inshallah, there'll be another edition where there's more countries and then it's updated more. But the idea is to bring an awareness that this is truly an international field, and that even though some of the work that goes under the radar or maybe happening in silo, that we wanted to make an effort to bring all these efforts together and support one another in the development of this field. And so this book that we're going to be talking about today is sort of a continuation of that process. But each year since then, we've published, the IAIP has published another book in 2022 well, now it's more than last year, we republished the Psychology of Personality, which was edited by Dr. Amber and Dr. Yassine Muhammad, which was a really foundational text in the field that was absent and missing, and people couldn't get a hold of it because it was out of publication. So we brought that back into circulation, and now this year, adding to the publications of IAIP, this new book on clinical applications of Islamic psychology. And this is a really important part of the IAIP, and it circulates back into the work. So in all three of these books, all of the proceeds from the sales of the book go back into the Faisal Haque Scholarship for Research in Islamic Psychology. So none of the editors nor any of the contributors to the book get any of the profits from the sales of this book. It all goes into supporting the development of the field, specifically with the supporting of young upcoming scholars who are interested in dedicating their research to Islamic psychology. And this is something that Dr. Amber himself felt really passionate about, to the point that he has put his parents' name on this and really is dedicated to the field. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Amber Haque to talk about this book, Clinical Applications of Islamic Psychology, and take you through some of the content and the chapters, inshallah.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair. What I'm going to do is share my screen here, and if you allow me.
Do you want me to take this? Do we have the other slides on here? If you want.
I do have the other slide with me, the same one that you sent, Dr. Abdullah.
Yeah, they're here. So I'll just advance them for you.
All right, good. That's also fine then. All right, so inshallah ta'ala. So I will start now. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulihil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. What a pleasure indeed it is to attend this book launch, although it is about 3:30 a.m. in my part of the world, on the West Coast in the U.S., and it's only 4 hours before sunrise. But I had to make the sacrifice of sleep simply for the cause of Islamic psychology and for the love of my brothers, Sayyid Jamaluddin and Dr. Abdullah, who are doing an exceptional job of promoting Islamic psychology all over the world. May Allah accept their sincerity and efforts, inshallah, Ameen. When we asked Brother Jamaluddin what we should talk about at the book launch, he mentioned a few points, and I will speak briefly about all of them, inshallah. He asked us to talk about the contents of the book, reasons why it is published now, the impetus for the book to edit the book, write the chapters that we did, the insights gained from this publication, the future work and gaps to fill, research for IP or research recommendations for IP, and if there are any jewels from the book, at least from my point of view or from Abdullah's point of view. So we will talk about all of that. I will, at least. We start with the contents. Actually, there are 12 chapters which followed our inclusion and exclusion criteria. So here's the book for you. Very briefly, in about a minute, I will just tell you some of the highlights of what we actually asked the scholars to include. I mean, in terms of criteria, we emphasize the fact that the authors to write only about the applications or practical applications of Islamic psychology rather than discuss the theories in the book. And secondly, we asked their motivation for IP-driven treatment and the progress they have seen over time while doing the practice of the Islamic psychology. We also asked about if they use any religiosity tests and tools in clinical settings. And lastly, we asked if there is any use of Quranic verses and hadith as part of the treatment. There were definitely a lot more inclusion criteria, but I'm only going to mention these 4. And there was one exclusion criteria as well, that we asked the authors to avoid the practices taken from conventional and secular notions of psychology. So the chapters obviously vary in how the authors address these questions. We have the slides here. I'm going to go over them very briefly. Uh, Dr. Abdallah, yeah, so our brother Jamaluddin, starting with the slides here. The chapter 1 is titled The Clinical Preventive Approach of Islamic Psychology. And mashallah, as you can see, the authors, there are 8 of them here. From my good old place of work, my very dear university, from where actually I learned all about Islamic psychology. Starting at that time, I think Dr. Jamila Hanum was the department chair, and there are 8 authors in this. And the senior most author also is my good old friend. I believe he has retired, Professor Muhammad Dr. Hatta Shahram from the university there in. He's a psychiatrist and was the editor of the Journal of Psychiatry in Malaysia. So if you look at that chapter, basically they are trying to define mental health, to its management, and how Islam promotes good mental health. And they illustrate the model of Islamic scientific psychology. There are some figures that you will also see in these slides, which I'm going to skip because I'm a lot more comfortable in having the authors talk about these figures because they understand this more. But go back to the first slide, please. You will see that they have actually explained all this in 3 stages of clinical prevention, the whole clinical preventive approach. And examples are used from the author's own clinical practice, because one of the inclusion criteria also was that at least one of the authors of the chapter should be a practicing clinician, because it just happens that some of us are in academia, most of us are in anyway, but we wanted to make sure that at least one of the practitioner is one of the authors is a practitioner. So here, I believe quite a few are actually practitioners. So they drew it from their experience on their first-hand experience in delivering the Islamic psychology in clinical settings. And we put it as the first chapter in the book. Next chapter, please. Chapter 2. Mashallah, yes, clinical applications of traditional Islamically integrated psychotherapy, the TIP model, very popular here. There are some people connect me on LinkedIn asking me about the TIP, although it belongs to Dr. Fahad Khan and Human Keshavarzi's jurisdiction. But people ask me about the Khalil Center and all that here, because now I'm with the in the mental health group of the ICNA Relief. So yeah, the authors are from everywhere actually. Fahad is from US, Dr. Human from Turkey, and also US/Canada. And I think Sister Sina is from Turkey. So here they discuss the TIP model, and actually they, after discussing it briefly, the concept of self, the authors indicate that the Islamically oriented tradition is inclusive. Is an inclusive epistemology that considers scriptural, rational, and empirical data as equally admissible sources of information in developing psychological knowledge. So here they talk about their 7 underlying principles and how it is applied in the case of a Turkish client very successfully, and they claim that the TIP is helpful for everyone and not just Muslims. The 3rd chapter, please. Yes, God-oriented spiritual psychotherapy, authored by our dear colleagues and authors from Iran. The senior author, Professor Dr. Hamid Rafei, wrote an exceptional chapter in our IP Around the Globe book. Here they discuss the God-oriented spiritual psychotherapy multidimensional model, which activates the spiritual dimension in person by correcting their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And using clinical research methods, the authors conducted qualitative analysis of religious text. The method has been used in Iran for more than 15 years and now used towards developing a more comprehensive treatment methodology unknown in other parts of the world. Very impressive. And they also explain some of this in the figure, which is on the next slide. We'll go straight to the chapter number 4, the slide after this. which is Muraqabah as mindfulness-based therapy in Islamic psychotherapy by our dear author, Dr. Nazila Iskandarova, who's done exceptional writings, and she is from Canada. And she discusses the spiritual tradition of Islam and how this therapy is part of the Islamic tradition, actually. And the chapter focuses on incorporating muraqabah as a therapeutic tool in clinical settings with Muslim clients. Next slide, please. Chapter 5. Yeah, next. Is on the using of Quranic divine signs in psychotherapy and counseling by the authors, mashallah, professors and clinician Aikin and Dr. Pavlova from Russia. So just like the IPR on the Globe book, we also have a very international flavor to this book, just to see, like what Dr. Abdallah mentioned, that IP is not just seen in one country. Like at one time when I was in Malaysia, I was thinking that there's so much work going on. But at the same time, it was going on in many parts of the world. We were just not cognizant of the fact that in many places, mashallah, it did become an impetus. The whole movement of the Islamization of knowledge or integration of knowledge in Malaysia was a impetus to many of the authors you see here were actually students at IIUM, or at least some of them. And some were actually also teaching in various places the integration of knowledge, theory, etc. And their interest into Islamic psychology was a result of the hard efforts there, including the works of Professor Dr. Malik Badri, may Allah bless his soul. So in this ayah therapy, it's also based on the divine science given in the Quran, as understanding ayah or science in the Quran can create a deep connection of humans with their inner world and a comprehensive impact on their intellectual and spiritual development. This is also very revealing and very interesting chapter. Next chapter, please. Is authored by the first editor, Ambar Haque, sitting here right in front of you. I have been very impressed by the works of the Sheikh Ashraf Ali Thanvi, because I'm able to read in Urdu, and some of the works that I read that he had written actually is very relevant for some of the people who do the counseling and to understand the concept of Islamic psychology. So in the chapter, I talk about his techniques and how he had used it into therapy, his views of personality and psychological disorders. So when you read the chapter, you will get an appreciation of where he was coming from. And one of the things that really intrigued me was his detailed description of the 15 types of spiritual hearts and the factors affecting them, and that he actually gleaned from the Quran directly and was not discussed in the works of other scholars of Islamic psychology or Muslim scholars before him that I know of. So he also, in that chapter, of course, the author does, and based on what Thanvi described, is the qualities of a Muslim counselor as steps in counseling and what not to expect from therapies. Also, is going to be very useful for the practicing clinicians. Next chapter, please. On this slide, you see the title of the chapter is Integration of Islamic Spirituality in the Treatment of Grief and Perinatal Loss. Authors are Dr. Venus Mahmoudi and her team. I'm lucky enough to have her as a chapter author for my upcoming book on Muslim mental health in North America. So if Dr. Venus Mahmoudi is here, thank you, Dr. Mahmoudi, for agreeing to be a chapter author for my next book. Slight marketing for my next book, inshallah, which you're working on here in America. This chapter actually addresses here number 7, the grief treatment from an Islamic perspective in perinatal loss. And they outline the Islamic integrated approach to treatment of grief and point out that instilling a hope in a person's qadr and reliance on Allah's plans, tawakkul, are essential in Islamic-based therapy. And also the chapter covers much on research and analysis on the concepts of motherhood in Islam, death and grief, and an Islamic psychology approach to coping with the perinatal loss. Thank you. It's a very important chapter, actually, like many other chapters that we have, all of them in this book. Number 8, please. Yes, also very revealing, the short introduction to Ilm al-Nafs and Nafs psychotherapy by the dear friend and authors, Dr. Mustafa Merger. Many people in Europe know him, and in Turkey, obviously, the psychiatrist and his team. He introduces Nafs psychotherapy based on the ancient Sufi Muslim system taught by the first author in Turkey, and he does offer the courses in Netherlands as well as in Germany. And in this chapter, he outlines the therapy process using Ain al-Yaqeen, Haqq al-Yaqeen, leading to Ilm al-Yaqeen. I believe Brother Jamaluddin has taken this course and can tell us more about it. But one of the interesting things that the authors here say is that the most effective way to do all this is through dream analysis, and caution the fact that the therapist must undergo their own nafs analysis to study others. And the important thing, like what TIP authors also mentioned, that the therapies can be used with, or Islamic psychology or Islamic-based therapies can be used with people of any belief systems, because the principles are universal, not limited to Muslims only. Keep in mind that there are case reports with almost all of these chapters. If it's not there, then definitely would see in the authors of the works that they are mentioned as case reports and the successful use of these interventions. Chapter 9, please. Thank you very much. Yes, a spiritually focused assistance program and Islamic protocol for RCBT, authored by my dear friend, Dr. Psychiatrist Muhammad Omar Salim in Qatar. We know each other from Alan from 20 years ago. And of course, the very young, mashallah, psychiatrist, Dr. Khalid El-Zamzami. He is in US now, but he's also from Qatar and / Egypt. The authors in this chapter presented Islamic-based CBT, which can be tailored to the client's needs across various psychopathologies. And it's a multi-station protocol, which is very interesting, which aims to enhance spirituality within an Islamic cognitive behavioral framework. Chapter 10, please. Very interesting, Islamically integrated strategies for addiction treatment. Sister Sarah Moore uses Al-Ghazali's Ilm al-Nafs here as a paradigm to treat the problems of drug addictions in Muslims. Sister Sarah also has a chapter in my upcoming book on Muslim mental health. But here in this chapter, the works of Al-Ghazali are used to address the treatment of the components of personal change and in relation to addictions treatment. So this is very interesting. The 6 steps that is also used in TIPS and was written in a combined paper between with me and Human Keshavarzi. Well, time flies so quickly. It's been almost 10 years or more or more actually, maybe 15 years, using the Ghazali's 6 steps of change. Next chapter, please. Chapter 11 is also very, very interesting, written by Halim Crossan and Dr. Rabia Malik from UK, in which they discuss the divine names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a source of healing. And one of the cluster of divine names are prescribed to awaken the client's consciousness of God and for inner reflection and self-knowledge. It draws on the depth of psychological and spiritual dimensions of the meanings and effects of the divine names. This is very dear to me because, personally also when we read the Asmaul Husna and see and reflect on it, how profound an impact it makes on our conscience, consciousness, and everything. So this is very important, where the authors provide a theological overview of the divine names and relevance for our self-understanding of God, followed by a case example successfully used in the treatment of a client. Next, please, chapter 12. Last but not least, my good old friend, Professor Dr. Bagus Rayono from Indonesia. He wrote on Tazkiyah therapy, in which he explains that it is a Quranic-based intervention to purify and develop the human soul from problematic conditions towards peace. And he also uses a successful case study in this. So you will note that although, one or two chapters may not have, I think all chapters used successful therapy scenarios and interventions. So all these are very useful techniques and chapters that we have just discussed. You may want to close the slides, and I'll take over in terms of trying to answer some of the questions that which Brother Jamaluddin had, mashallah, based on his high level of curiosity, asked us to address in this book launch, starting with the reasons, for example. Why is it that we actually came up with this book? So I was thinking about it, and then I said to myself, well, there are a smaller set of reasons, and there are a bigger set of reasons actually why actually we publish, why we write, why we have interest in this kind of work. So for this particular book, the smaller set of reasons is that there has been, of course, the development in the field of IP offering definitions, theories, and methodologies, but we see an extreme lack of clinical applications in published form. In a study by Haque et al., which is me and my team comprised of 4 or 5 mashallah scholars here. I was learning from them because they led the project as well. In 2016, we worked on an Islamically integrated therapies research. Between 2006 and 2016, we found only 3 publications on clinical applications. So there is really a dearth of literature on clinical applications. And since 2016, there's only about 1 such article which is published per year in mainstream journals. There was a special issue also of the APA journal, Spirituality in Clinical Practice, in which they discussed Islamic spirituality. It was just published last year in 2023. But if you look at the bigger reasons why we do this, is to bring, and there already is, mashallah, a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift in our thinking on what Islamic psychology can offer, and to instill the confidence in our legacy. Islamic psychology is not new. It was there more than 1,000 years ago, but we didn't look into it for various reasons. So that's beyond the scope of our presentation. The other bigger reason is that, and we know this, the colonial mindset, which is now, alhamdulillah, changing in some parts of the world, as we see ISIP and mashallah, the young students participating in this. And this is resulting in examining knowledge from the authentic sources, the Quran, the Hadith, and classical Islamic literature. So based on the works of our early Muslim scholars, I published one of my papers in 2004, exactly 20 years ago, in the Journal of Religion and Health, on the contributions of early Muslim scholars to psychology and challenges to modern day psychologists. Because for me, knowing our legacy is very crucial, as it is rooted in the Quran and Hadith, and it gives us our identity. Another significant reason is also for us to have a deeper understanding and appreciation of Islamic epistemology, and to know that when problems are related or actually treated with Islamic principles, they fix the root cause of the problem. Another reason is that we wanted to bring like-minded scholars on one platform that could lead to an exchange of ideas and promote research in Islamic psychology. And an edited book is an excellent way of doing this. The next question, actually, which Brother Jamal asked, was about why now? So actually, this book is a natural progression or follow-up to the theoretical models we covered in the last book, IP Around the Globe. So this book is, in a way, moving away from theory to practice. Some of the issues were addressed there in the IP Around the Globe book. It is a very, very important book. So actually, we recommend that you buy all 3 books, not just this book that was under discussion today, but you will have and see a natural progression from theories to the things around the globe, and now people in practice and in action. So, this is not the first time that such efforts have been made. There are a few other edited books published in English. The books, articles, conference proceedings, and dissertations are available in many Muslim countries and in different languages. As you know, you will find them in our edited book in IP Around the Globe as well. I had read articles in the 1990s using Quranic ayahs in therapy and the effects of reading the Quran measured by EEG, which is a measure of electrical activity in the brain. These were done in Malaysia and in a psychology lab in India and published locally. So after this, Jamaldeen, what you know was the impetus, actually, what led us to do this. Actually, each of us, the chapter authors and the editors, have different reasons for this. To be honest with you, my impetus was the scholarly environment at International Islamic University of Malaysia when I worked there between 1996 and 2004. I was the head of department there, and actually I had to ensure that all the courses that are being taught in psychology have components of Islamization or Islamic perspective. Additionally, the sohbah, or the company of scholars around me, instilled in me the love for integration of knowledge and Islamic psychology. The impetus for me also is to support the Fazl Haq IP scholarship, which Dr. Abdallah kindly mentioned, and we created at the IAIP in 2018. All proceeds from this book goes to that scholarship, supporting research and helping IP diploma students at CMC. Now, what are the insights that are gained from this work? There are at least a few, and I will let you know 3 or 4 of them. That there is successful IP interventions available and used clinically in various parts of the world. That there is so much to learn from these systematic and step-by-step therapies that are evidence-based and that have proven successful in case studies, as you would see in almost every chapter of this book. That in this book, as well as in the IP Around the Globe book, you will see names of scholars you have never heard before. And there are a few in every Muslim country and even in some non-Muslim countries. Also, the fact, the insight gained for many of us is that we are not pioneers of Islamic psychology. We are merely students. And if you don't want to call yourself a student, I would say that we are an advocate of Islamic psychology. Pioneers were the first people to develop these and use these concepts, and there were many, several in each country and in all parts of the world. So we today are simply, alhamdulillah, reviving the concepts that we had lost due to our own negligence. You know, I want to mention, because in a gathering where there are a lot of young people, I always mention the fact that you need to read 2 books. The first is Crisis in the Muslim Mind by late Professor Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, who was director at the International Islamic University of Malaysia. And another book, and both are downloadable free of charge online, A Guide to the Modern World by Professor Syed Hussein Nasser. These will change the way we think about knowledge, about how people from the secular perspectives are coming from, why we had lost our legacy, and also to feel good about our identity as a Muslim. So after this, the questions posed to us was the future work and to fill the gaps that there are right now in the field of Islamic psychology. The first thing that young people, including some of us actually who are also young at heart, have to think, we have to make sure that we think outside the box and independent of our secular training. We need to examine very carefully the spiritual tradition in addition to the biopsychosocial model, which we talk about all the time. 2, focus on the heart model, because it is the diseased heart that is the root of the problems. 3, in terms of, we're talking about research and focus. Everybody will have different, but these are some of the points I want to raise. Number 3 is to continue with, or do if you are not doing, experimental studies to contrast the effects of Islamic psychology with other forms of treatment, or no treatment. Use different experimental designs and control groups. Number 4, increase collaborative research with local and international scholars to exchange ideas. Number 5, this is far-fetched, but I want to go ahead and say it, that think of Islamic psychology diagnostic categories with treatments that consider the spiritual and cultural factors to have a sense of how Muslims understand psychological conditions. The DSM is not entirely relevant to Muslims. So we are, alhamdulillah, if we think about a classification of illnesses, we're thinking ahead of time, but somebody has to do it. And inshallah, some of the people sitting here and listening, hopefully the students can think about the categorization, classification. The DSM itself, before the DSM came to being, there were a classification of mental or psychological or spiritual disorders, illnesses by previous Muslim scholars. You know, Al-Balkhi and even Tanvi, and even when I was in Turkey, I'd seen that even from the psychiatrists and psychologists there and the scholars there had also classified mental disorders as psychological illness. So for us to think and renew and put them all together and do it is another research that we need to do to, in a way, add to the DSM, which is not entirely relevant to Muslims. Number 6, actually, I would say that we need to engage in translating, and I've been saying this since the last 20 years. Actually, a lot of this work has been done, but there needs to be more translation of works of early to present Muslim scholars, or at least abstracts or synopsis of essential books and manuscripts. This will also remove the conception that there are only a few IP scholars around the globe. Number 7, work with Islamic scholars who have an interest in psychology. I have read marvelous materials in Urdu derived from the Quran and Hadith. The case is the same in almost every Muslim country. Number 8, differentiate and do more research on cultural versus Islamic teachings. Many people take their culture as part of Islam, and unfortunately, this is more in developing countries than in the West. Number 9, start a journal on Islamic psychology. Do it once a year and publish it from IAIP. Sorry, Dr. Abdallah, I've been saying this, and I know it's very hard, but inshallah, it is possible. There are many journals in Iran and Indonesia, and they publish the IP articles in native languages. What we can also do is select and publish dissertation abstracts and conference proceedings through ISIP once a year. Number 10, we must get away with the thinking that it's not worth it if it is not published in a mainstream journal. Because if we are doing it in our own language, if mainstream journals are not interested beyond the scope of their publication, we can do it ourselves. So I'll stop there in terms of the future work and go on to the research in Islamic psychology. I would say that let people choose their own topic based on their passion. I was interested in the works of early Muslim scholars, and that led me to know about a lot of new things. Goes back to year 2000 when I and Professor Malik Badri went to Australia. And then when I did my presentation, he stood up in the audience and says, well, your interest is same as my interest because I work on Balkhi and you're talking about the different scholars. My handicap was not knowing Arabic. And actually, because of that, I was not able to delve deeper into the literature. But in terms of then a lot of Islamic psychology scholars or scholars and shiuch in India, that I can do it in Urdu, and the ISIP students and scholars from the other parts of the world can do in their own language. But any jewels from the book? Here is probably the last one. This is also a very wide topic, as each chapter has its own jewel. One has to read and find out from these chapters what jewels they find in each chapter. For me, the subject of the spiritual heart is most intriguing because the Quran itself mentions it in at least 132 places or times. The Prophet ﷺ described 4 types of heart: the radiant, like a radiant lamp of a mu'min, the inverted or reversed heart of a disbeliever, the wrapped around heart like of a munafiq, and the foliated heart, which is a mix of faith and hypocrisy. if you read the works of Imam al-Ghazali in Ihya Ulumuddin, the 40 volumes in 4 parts, he talked about ibadat, muamalat, muhlikat. In the third stage, he talks about the wonders of the heart. And in the fourth, he talks about the munjiyat. Ibn Taymiyyah, in his famous book, Amrad al-Qalb, wrote that the heart is considered the leader of the body. And it is only through the purification of the leader that humans can become, of the other organs of their body can become pure. So the Quran itself puts conditions for acceptance of our ibadah, in which the heart is of primary importance. So for example, we say, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Qad aflaha man zakkaha. When a worshipper comes to God with pure heart, it's a condition for ibadah. And illa man ata Allah bin qalbin salim, acceptance is granted to those with sound heart. So these, mashallah, statements in the Quran and of all these scholars makes me attracted to the doing research on the heart. My chapter discusses these as well. And there are gems like this in all chapters. And I will tell you this, that also Prophet Muhammad SAW used to pray that, Ya muqallib al-qulub, sabbit qalbi ala dinik, subhanallah. So I will end with this. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma lamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest. We have no knowledge. I have no knowledge except what he taught us. Indeed, he is the knowing and the wise. Jazakallahu khairan for being a patient listener. Over to Brother Jamaluddin. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallahu fikum, Dr. Anwar Haque and Dr. Abdallah Rothman, for this excellent presentation and introduction of this very important book indeed. And there's a lot of questions and reflections amongst our participants and our excellent brothers and sisters from all over the world. Thank you so much for thoroughly going through the book and the different chapters, Dr. Anwar Haque, in such an excellent way. And thank you for editing this book, Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Anwar. I think that for all of us who are interested in Islamic psychology, both as students, as professionals, as practitioners and clinicians, this will be a step forward when it comes to applying the knowledge. And as you rightfully alluded to, Dr. Anwar and Dr. Abdallah, it's been a lot of research when it comes to theories, but application not as much. So I think that a very good stepping stone and springboard towards more research and more articles written about how to apply Islamic psychology in your clinical practice. And there is a lot of questions from our audience and all of our excellent brothers and sisters in the chat as well, that we will try to refer to as well. I had a couple of questions. I think that Dr. Anwar, you answered most of it actually. But I would like to invite actually, I think that some of the authors are in the conference.
I think rather than taking the time to hear from us, it's probably best to use the rest of the time to highlight. We have some really esteemed authors that are present here. Dr. Mustafa Merter is present with us today, which is a huge blessing, as well as Dr. Alizi is here, alhamdulillah, and Rabia Malik I see is here. So I think this is a real honor to have these authors here. So I think we do best to hear directly from them, inshallah.
Thank you for
if there's other authors that I missed, please do highlight.
We're trying to look at the chat, Dr. Abdallah, and the participants. But Dr. Mustafa Merter is with us. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Hojjam. How are you doing, Dr.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam.
Alaikum Sidi.
So Dr. Mustafa, welcome.
It's Henry from Turkey.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
Jamil.
Jamil. Also, Dr. Alizi, if we have you, Dr. Alizi, feel free to unmute yourself. And I think Dr. Alizi is here as well. I'm trying to, yes. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Alizi. How are you doing? An honor to have you with us. You're muted, Dr. Alizi, if you could just, your microphone is muted, Dr. Alizi. While you unmute yourself, Sister Rabia, do we have Sister Rabia as well? If you could unmute yourself as well. Welcome to the Sohbah. We're very honored to have you.
Assalamu alaikum. It's a real pleasure to be here and to hear about all the contributions. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the contributions too, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan.
Alaikum.
Sister Fatima, could you also pin Sister Rabia, please? I would appreciate that. So,
If sorry, if people aren't on the video, I can't do that.
okay. So, Sister Rabia, if you open up your camera, then we can pin you as well, inshallah. So, Dr. Merta, let's start with you. Would you like to tell us more about your chapter briefly and your experience of using nafs psychology? We as ISIP have had the honor to host you for a couple of lectures, and we're going to host you actually for a series soon, which will be shared on our YouTube channel. So we will highlight more about that. But if you can just briefly tell a little bit more about your clinical practice and what you gained from writing the chapter as well. We would love to hear more from you directly.
Well, I am a funny kind of psychiatrist. I work 25 years now to establish structural and dynamic analysis of the nafs, starting with the European, Jungian, Freudian structural analysis, and then Roberto Assagioli's structural analysis. Then I tried to accomplish all these structural analyses through Holy Quran and published 2 books. My aim is to understand what the nafs is. Because one of the paradoxes of our science is if you ask a psychiatrist or psychologist what the psyche is, we have no answer. Because the greats of psychiatry, psychology, they have no answer for this question. But nafs is not the same thing. Nafs is a whole wonderful structure, which is much more complicated, profound than the psyche. So the more I studied nafs, the more I was amazed. But at the last reference to understand nafs is, of course, the Holy Quran. So it's a paradoxical, funny situation. I don't know Arabic, but I started now about 8 years now to make tawil, not a tawil, from the existing tawils of Abdurrazzaq Kashani, Ibn Ajibe, Nakhchivani tawils. I tried to make a psychological interpretation of these tawils. And this work is, as far as my concern, is finished, and the redactor is working on it. So all these subtleties, spiritual heart, states, unconscious categories, all these subtleties of the nafs can only be learned from the Holy Quran and the Ishari table. The Ishari table, they are very valuable. This is the first part of it, Ilm al-Yaqeen. It's very important. We have to understand, we have to have a theory about nafs. But if we don't consider it on us, this is Ayn al-Yaqeen. It's dry theory. It's not living theory. From this Ilm al-Yaqeen, we should go on Ayn al-Yaqeen, and this is the learn analysis, Islamic learn analysis, which we practice now about 15 years, 20 years. You have to consider on you what you are learning from the Ilm al-Yaqeen. And this is the work we are making now. The third, after the third part of it is Haque al-Yaqeen. Haque al-Yaqeen is if you what you have observed on yourself in your therapies, you have a confirmation for it. So through this three levels, we slowly understand what's going on this wonderful structure, which is nafs. Thank you. That's all what I want to say.
Dr. Merthed, we're always so honored to listen to you and your vast amount of knowledge and expertise and experience. And for all of you who are interested in Dr. Merted's model, he offers programs and courses in Turkey, and we will share all those resources in the Zoom chat, inshallah. We also have it in ISIP's directory of different programs in Islamic psychology that is offered by scholars, institutions, universities, such as Dr. Merted's work or Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Amber at the Cambridge Muslim College. So you can find the directories. Nevertheless, we will share the resources. Dr. Merted, thank you so much for your inputs.
I thank you.
I also wanted to just introduce that we're going to do a series with Dr. Merted very soon, where he's going to share more about his inputs in nafs psychology, inshallah. We're very honored to do this partnership with you and your team, Dr. Merted. So thank you so much.
I am honored. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. It's really.
Thank you so much.
Well,
And thank you so much, Dr. Merted Hojam. We're very honored to be with you. And Turkey is one of the centers of Islamic psychology, dear brothers and sisters, under the excellent leadership of Dr. Merted and other scholars. I wanted to ask Dr. Alize, but I think, Dr. Alize, your microphone doesn't work. So we have Dr. Jamila with us from Malaysia as well, which is also one of the leading countries in the field of Islamic psychology. Dr. Amber has lived in Malaysia for many years, working at IIUM as one of the pioneers as well, Dr. Amber. So he alluded to that earlier. So Dr. Jamila and Dr. Alize, welcome to the book launch of the book. Please tell us more about your chapter and the insights that we can gain from how you guys are applying Islamic psychology in your clinical practice. Bismillah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Jamila Hanum. I'm a colleague of Dr. Alize, and I really would like to share with all of you that I'm also a student of Dr. Amber Haque. I still remember when I was an undergraduate student at the International Islamic University Malaysia, Dr. Amber taught me abnormal psychology, and it was a wonderful experience whereby I need to learn about abnormality from both Islamic perspective and also from our Malay Muslim in Malaysia's perspective. And I need to go to, if you know, we have this place, Batu Cave, whereby our Hindus fellow go and do their worship. And I need to interview many of them to see the different perspective about abnormality. And I am also I also learned Islamic psychology from the late Professor Malik Badri. So I was a student of him as well. I would like to share with you in our first chapter, we focus very much on how Islamic psychology can prevent ourselves from having mental health issues. And we try to integrate what we have done with the WHO framework on prevention. And we have, I can see that in the chapter, we can divide it into two things. Dr. Alize Alias elaborated very well with a few figures, which I believe it will be very beneficial to readers on how Islamic scientific psychology can assist us to prevent people from having mental health issues. And we also outline many examples, many work that we have done so far, especially in Malaysia. And we have many works that we have done in International Islamic University of Malaysia in preventing mental health issues, especially among our community in the International Islamic University Malaysia, and also in Gombak, the location, our district. And I would like to share with you, particularly, there are few randomized control trials work that we have done in the International Islamic University Malaysia. So I am the leader of the team. So I have showcased that Islamic psychology or an intervention that that is integrated with Islamic psychology principles and methods works, and we have evidence for that. I think after COVID-19, International Islamic Psychology of Malaysia also focused very much on developing a framework. Now we have established a framework called International Islamic University Malaysia Framework for Mental and Spiritual Health. The acronym is IHSAN, IAIP Haikal li As-Sihah Al-Aqliyah wa An-Nafsiyah. So we showcase that framework in our chapter, and in the IIUM we have this profiling called sejahtera profiling. Sejahtera means like well-being. It is the vice versa of samsara. Yeah, and we screen our students before they join the university. So using this IIUM sejahtera profiling, we want to detect early mental health issues so that we can assist our students. We also illustrated in a table some of the measurements of Islamic religiosity or spirituality that we need to promote and make use of it when we do our clinical practice. Other than that, we also show some of the examples related to how we use Islamic psychology in our clinical practice for people who have established or diagnosed with mental disorders, and for people need to undergo rehabilitations. So that is the summary so far of our chapter 1, and I would like to invite Dr. Alizi, if you can unmute yourself. Your microphone is okay now, Dr. Alizi?
Dr. Alizi's microphone is unfortunate, but we are seeing his beautiful presence, mashallah, and the nur from his face. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless both of you, sister, and Dr. Jamila and Dr. Alizi. Dr. Alizi wrote in the chat that chapter 1 was written by 1 organizational psychologist, 2 clinical psychologists, and 5 psychiatrists. Thank you, Dr. Jamila, for presenting in such an elaborative way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your and Dr. Alizi's and rest of Professor Shukran Abdul Rahman, the rest of the psychology field of IIUM. You guys have done such an amazing work, and you guys are truly one of the pioneering universities. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our works as Sadaqa Jariyah for Professor Malik Badri. I never met him personally, but through all of you as his students, and also through Dr. Abdallah Rothman and Dr. Haque and Dr. Alizi, all of you, I feel like I am a student of him as well. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this as Sadaqa Jariyah. Thank you so much for the amazing work you guys are doing in IIUM. And Malaysia is certainly one of the centers of the research and application of Islamic psychology. Jazakallah khairan. Very briefly, we want to do a giveaway. I'm mindful of the time, but I just want to briefly listen to Sister Rabi as well. So Sister Rabi, if you can briefly as well, just present some inputs from your chapter and the way that you endorse and apply Islamic psychology in your clinical practice. If you can just share some brief insights, inshallah. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. I'll keep it brief. My training was really in, I started off doing a PhD in cross-cultural psychology, which really made me aware of the underpinnings of Islamic philosophy under most cultural practices and beliefs around health and illness. And I ended up training as a family therapist here in the UK. But in parallel to that training, I was always seeking Islamic knowledge, and alhamdulillah, was very fortunate to come across some incredible Islamic scholars. And one of the scholars that I trained with is a woman called Halima Krausen, who's the co-author of the chapter with me. And in the workshops I attended with her over many years, and as our relationship developed, there were some things that she was exploring with us, such as Quranic stories, which I've written a previous chapter in Harry York Al-Karam's book about, using Quranic stories in therapy, and also the divine names. And she encouraged us to put an exploration of these into practice with her. And I began to see the kind of tremendous therapeutic benefits of these 2 particular ways of developing and understanding our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the book, thank you to Abdullah and to Professor Amber, was a brilliant opportunity to try and articulate some of that learning and to write the chapter with her. And the divine names in particular, you know, are such a treasure trove, really. I mean, I think our chapter really just touches on the surface. There's so much more to be written about this. And, you know, it's a really good juncture or way of understanding our own nafs and its limitations, and also in enhancing our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understanding really God's vastness and both his Jamal and his Jalal. So in the chapter, what we tried to do was kind of show how often within the psychotherapeutic context, you know, the names, the qualities of the names reappear again and again in therapy. I mean, the primary one is Rahma, which actually most counselors, therapists across the world acknowledge the vitality of compassion in enabling people's growth and self-exploration. And it's a vast name and quality to explore. Other ones that feature a lot are around forgiveness, and there are 3 divine names for forgiveness, which in itself is very interesting. So what I discovered first through my own work with the divine names, and then later in applying this with clients, is that, you know, we all have experiences of these qualities within our own lives, and we struggle with them. And that actually it's a really valuable way of becoming aware of our own experience, for example, of forgiveness, or the limitations of forgiveness within our own lives. And that when we often hit blocks as far as our own understanding from a nafs perspective goes of these qualities, but when we really turn to Allah to grace us with his divine qualities, to become curious and open to understanding his benevolence through these qualities and how he acts upon the world, we open ourselves to a much vaster ocean which can take us beyond our own limitations, that has tremendous healing potential. And so in the case study, we try and illustrate how, in particular, these divine qualities of Ar-Rahman and Al-Ghafar came up in a particular case, which is the one who forgives. So it, you know, again, it's really wonderful to hear about how people are applying Islamic, you know, spiritual practices in clinical settings. And I really also just want to echo what Mustafa Mata said about, you know, the importance of this being a lived religion. And that actually, you know, for me, you know, one of the most wonderful things has been that when you really give space to people to talk about their relationship with Allah and to be curious about it and to explore it, it brings something into therapy that is really tremendous. So therapy is a good kind of domain in which to really help people connect more deeply with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their faith. And we have so many jewels, as Professor Amber said, so many jewels within our tradition that have this healing capacity. So yeah, it's great to be a part of the book. Thank you.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Rabia, we're very honored to hear your opinion, and it was very delightful. Please, could somebody mute? Please? All right, thank you. It's very refreshing to hear your experience in utilizing Islamic psychologically concepts in clinical practice. I think for all of us who are interested in Islamic psychology, and particularly all of us who are also practicing Islamic psychology, we need a space where we can learn from each other's experience. This is still quite a new field, and I think by learning through reading this book, and your experience, all of you who presented, Dr. Merter and Dr. Alizi, Dr. Jamilan and Dr. Rabia, I think that for all of us who are practitioners who are also applying Islamic psychology, it could be a place for support, and we need that indeed. So thank you so much. I just want to highlight that we are having a giveaway. So, and by the way, Dr. Alizi did a lecture for us in ISIP a couple of months ago, which is called The Dilemma of the Islamic Psychologist. It's a step 2 from the book that Professor Malik Badri, rahimullah, wrote with regards to the dilemma of the Muslim psychologist. So definitely check out that lecture with Dr. Alizi. It's a very thorough lecture, and we cannot unfortunately listen to Dr. Alizi today because his microphone is not working. So Sister Fatima or Sister Shireen, if you can share his lecture, it's a lot of insights into excellent work that Dr. Alizi are doing. So Sister Fatima Ahmed, I want you to take over, and just to introduce the giveaway, I also want to thank Sister Rafa for helping out to conduct this session today. It's one of our dear colleagues. So Sister Fatima, without any further ado, if you want to introduce the giveaway, because people are excited, by the way. Sister Fatima, if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you to everyone who's joining us today. Thank you, of course, to our esteemed authors, and we're very grateful for everyone's presence and contributions. Very briefly, this is open to those who are attending live here today. So there's an opportunity to get a copy. And the brief steps are simply that you're going to answer. I'll just share my screen, and those who want to maybe take a photo of it, you may do so. I will also share the details in the chat, but just very briefly, there you go. So you can answer the short question, how will this book be of benefit to the Ummah? And then please email us at contact@isip.foundation. And we have the deadline for this Wednesday. So please get your opportunities in. Please make it short, 2 to 3 sentences, and send it in to the email by Wednesday, January 17th of this week. So in a couple of days. And then inshallah, if you are selected, we will be in further contact to get the book, inshallah, to you. So I'll just leave that up.
Jazakallah khairan.
Give me a second.
So feel free to take a screenshot now, or we will also share the information in the Zoom chat as well, inshallah. I want to thank Sister Fatima for the amazing work she's doing, and also Sister Rafa and Sister Shireen, Sister Mediha from the media team who did the introduction video, and also Sister Nadira and rest of our excellent team for all the efforts they're doing, all of our excellent colleagues, brothers and sisters. We have 5 books to give away. This is out of the generosity of Dr. Abdallah Rothman and Dr. Amber Haque. So there's 5 books. So write your sentences. How will this book benefit the Ummah and your clinical practice as well? Might as well add that. And email us, inshallah. And Wednesday the 17th is deadline. And it's only for those who attended the session today, by the way. So we trust you guys, inshallah. All right, Sister Fatima, if you can stop sharing the screen. There are a couple of questions from our audience, all of our excellent participants, that we would like to address to our esteemed editors of the book, Dr. Abdullah and Dr. Amber, and also all of the participants in the book, the authors, Dr. Merta, Dr. Alizi, Dr. Jamila, and Dr. Rabia. If there are any other authors of the book, please unmute yourself. You're most welcome to join the sohbah, inshallah. We're very honored to be with you all. So essentially, there are a couple of questions I would like to just briefly go through, mindful that we are almost done with the session today. So with your permission, dear, scholars, esteemed teachers, mentors, and dear clinicians, if you can be with us for a couple of minutes, we would love to address some of the participants' questions. There's a lot of amazing questions from all of our participants. I want to thank all the participants, all of our excellent sisters and brothers, for all of your inputs, your reflections. Your questions are very, very interesting, and we're learning so much from your engagement. So thank you so much for joining, inshallah. Sister Sharifa is writing, can we adopt the grief treatment for widows as well? And is there any short courses that we can take from the individual chapters presented in the book? Maybe Dr. Merta, you can speak a little bit about your courses, because I know that you're doing a lot of programs, which we would like to share.
Well, the first start could be the YouTube series we are going to publish, thanks to you. In this series, we have a general idea what we are talking about. Then, if there are special demands for specific questions, we could organize some special sessions to give this explanation. This is all what I can. Also, people can write to my website, Dr. Mustafa Merter website, to have further answers. Our team, we are about 10 people. We could try to assist you.
Inshallah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hojam. We're looking forward to this partnership, and we will share all the resources in the email to all those who register for the session, resources to all the scholars, to Dr. Abdallah, Dr. Amber as well, to the IAIP, to ISIP, to all of the universities, IAUM, etc. Dr. Rothman, would you like to share just briefly? I know there are some questions about the CMC program. Would you like to share anything from those who would like to participate or do the program very briefly?
Sure. Are there just general questions about the...
I think, yeah, they're asking how to study Islamic psychology from the authors of the book, but I was also thinking from the CMC, if you would like to share anything, Dr.
Yeah,
Rothman.
so I believe the applications may still be open for another week or so for the next cohort, but we are now on the third cohort of students, alhamdulillah, in the CMC diploma. And this is for practitioners, so people who are either already practicing as psychologists, psychotherapists, counselors, and that have some way of practicing ethically. So it's not a qualification to become a Islamic psychology. There's no qualification per se, but it does prepare somebody to be able to sit for certification with IAIP, similar to other programs like TIIP, but this is obviously much more involved academic program because it's an entire year long. It's quite rigorous academically. I think Syed Jamaluddin could attest to that among some of the other people here. But it does give somebody a very deep orientation to unlearning. Like a lot of it is unlearning what we think we know and that we take for granted, of standing on the foundation of what we thought the self was, what we thought psychology was, and recognizing that there's so much from our education and just our socialization as modern people that becomes like a Trojan horse, taking in these concepts that are problematic from a standpoint of an Islamic paradigm. And so then we start from the beginning and sort of build up from the first principles of understanding what is the self, that it's like Dr. Mustafa Merter said, it's not the psyche, it's not this one-dimensional perspective, but it is an ocean of understanding that we learn from the Quran and from the Sunnah and from our early Muslim scholars. And so it's a journey, but it's also a self-reflective journey. So we ask the students to be deeply engaged in their own work. Also, like what Dr. Mustafa said, is that it's fundamental that to have ayn al-yaqeen, that you actually have to witness this and experience it for yourself and open your heart and work on your own heart in order to be a practitioner. And so it's a deep journey. It's one that takes commitment. But it's, I think, a really rich journey, and we hope that people, and we know there's more and more opportunities opening up. We tend to try to keep it small. We get tons of applications. We only choose 30, just above 30, because we're trying to keep it intimate in Suhba, and so that the professors can really oversee the learning of the students, because we don't take it lightly that they're going to have the care of other people's hearts in their responsibility. So. You're muted.
Jamaluddin, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank Dr. Rothman for the amazing work he has done in organizing this program together with all of our excellent teachers and scholars. And we just shared the link to how to apply for the program. We will also share Dr. Merter's link as well. And very briefly also from Dr. Elise and Dr. Jamila, if you guys would like to share from the IAIUM point of view, if people are interested in, we get a lot of these questions in ISIP actually, how can we do like research? How can we do PhDs in IAIUM or other universities? If you guys can just share briefly how people can apply to study in Malaysia.
Yes, I would like to welcome everyone. If you are yet to do your undergraduate degree, definitely we have a new curriculum. We've just completed reviewing the new curriculum, and previously our course were named Psychology from Islamic Perspective. I couldn't remember that we used the term Islamic psychology previously. There's a lot of hot debate on the terms. And now our new curriculum for undergraduate degree, we have 2 courses, and we name it Science of Soul. And we have Science of Soul 1, Science of Soul 2 is a direct translations of Ilm and Nafs. And of course, our focus on our masters in psychology are very much applied in nature for clinical psychology, developmental psychology, and industrial and organizational psychology at the moment. And of course, as what Dr. Amber has mentioned, all of the courses, it is compulsory for us to at least integrate materials in relations to Islamic psychology or Science of Soul. And I'm sorry, this is a shameless promotions of myself. All of my students, my PhD students at the moment, at least I have 4 primary PhD students, they are developing modules that it is a must for them to do a bit of grounded theory, or at least integrate materials related to Islamic psychology, and somehow they're forced to conduct experiment to test whether it's work or not, whether it has evidence base or not. They may choose either to do a simple experiment, or most of my PhD students complete their randomized controlled trial in their PhD, and also they do a bit of qualitative to learn about the experiences. This is not only for me, but I believe that in order for us to promote Islamic psychology, we must also have evidence. And RCT is one of the method for us to use. And also definitely my other colleagues in the Department of Psychology, also we must promote and advocate continuously become a students of Islamic psychology or Science of Soul. Thank you.
And your sister, Dr. Jamila, thank you for your excellent work and the pioneering work that you guys are doing with Dr. Elise and Professor Shukran. Is very admirable, and we have had the honor to also have partnership with IAIUM, so we're very pleased to see the development. There's a lot of questions for IAIUM, for Cambridge Muslim College, under the excellent leadership of Dr. Rothman and Dr. Haque. So we will compile all the questions, brothers and sisters. We will ask them directly to the scholars, and we will get back to you. There are some people asking, how can I apply? People are asking, can I be accepted if I have a master's in human science program in clinical psychology? So essentially, we will compile all these questions and ask them to you. So Dr. Jamila, we don't have your contact info, so we will get it from Dr. Elise, inshallah. There is a last question. I'm mindful of the time, so I just want to ask this question. It's from MAH. I don't know what MAH's name is, but MAH is asking, did each chapter include studies about the effectiveness of each method? Or how can we gauge in their effectiveness? Maybe I should ask the editors, Dr. Amber or Dr. Abdallah. Dr. Amber and Dr. Abdallah, if one of you would like to
Well,
answer.
as we mentioned that there are case studies, and basically we have to rely on what the authors are saying about how effective each method was. So, in the cases where these methods were applied, it turned out to be very positive based on the assessment of both the clinician and the client. So based on the case studies, we can say that the methods were successful. In some cases, the scales were used or tools were used that perhaps also gave back the idea of the effectiveness of the method. But before Allah also gives his input on this, I have a question for both of you, actually, ISIP and IAP. If there's any way that we could actually heavily discount the book for students only, those who are registered in school and cannot afford to pay the $25, let's say, in America, and I'm not sure how the prices are in other parts of the world, but if the ebook is much less, and I remember that in Malaysia, because the books were so high, people would simply just take the one copy and go get the photocopies made for, a cent, 1 cent per page. So it would be very cheap for them. But if we make the ebooks available through either ISIP or IAIP, I would be very happy. If I can support in that in any way, please let me know. But we want this book, even if it reaches freely to all the currently registered students all over the world. We don't make any money out of this. I'll be more than happy to do that. Just the e-version of the book.
I'll let Dr. Rothman answer, inshallah. We will love that as well. But yeah, Dr. Rothman, any answer to Dr. Amber's question?
Yeah, we'll figure out a way to facilitate that, inshallah.
Inshallah, we will be happy to be part of facilitating, inshallah. I know that people always love ebooks, and there's a lot of ebooks shared already in our groups, and if this could be an official share that IAIP and ISIP can do together, it will be such an honor to be part of that, inshallah. Thank you so much, Dr. Amber. Thank you so much, Dr. Rothman. Thank you so much, Dr. Mustafa, Dr. Alizi, Dr. Rabi, and Dr. Jamila. We're very honored to host you all. Mindful that we're going over time already now, so we need to finalize the book launch now. I wanted to just give last remarks from Dr. Abdallah Rothman and Dr. Amber Haque as editors of the book before we end and summarize the session today. Any final remarks from you as editors, Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Amber?
Go ahead, Dr. Abdullah. I don't have anything to say except that, may Allah bless your efforts. May Allah put barakah in this. May Allah change the mindset that we have been simply looking into the secular and conventional psychology, and may Allah open our hearts into examining, exploring the gems throughout the actually history of what the early Muslim scholars is very dear to my heart, their writings in the language that you know. If you know Arabic, if you know Persian, if you know from different parts of the world, look into it, get it out there and share with the people, everyone. And thank you all from my side to participate in this particular, mashallah, gathering. May Allah put blessing in this gathering. And for everyone who attended this gathering, may Allah put the barakah in the efforts of everyone who actually has interest in Islamic psychology. May Allah make it actually one day the part of the curriculum in all universities. This is something that ISIP has to probably struggle with, that the students, wherever they're registered from, demand their Department of Psychology to offer at least one course in Islamic psychology, and hopefully in a few years, a diploma program, whether it's online, in person. Unless the students ask their department chairs and administration, nothing will happen. So ISIP can take a leading role in this, and mashallah, the kind of qualities that Dr. Abdallah, leadership qualities, and Dr. and Brother Sayyid Jamaluddin has, I have absolutely no doubt that inshallah in my lifetime I will see this happen, that there will be a addition of Islamic psychology curriculum in almost all Muslim countries, inshallah ta'ala. We are adding in Qatar, and that was my dream when I was living in the Middle East. It did not happen, but when I left, Allah listened to the du'as, inshallah. That's all I have to say. Jazakallahu khair. Over to Brother Abdullah.
Beautiful duas, Dr. Amber. Thank you so much for being one of the leading pioneers in the field of Islamic psychology. We feel very indebted to you and all of our excellent scholars. Thank you for your pioneering work. Dr. Abdallah, if you would like to share some final remarks.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'd just say that we hope that this is just one offering in this development of clinical applications of Islamic psychology, and that there will be many more, and that we need to remember that the Islamic tradition is a living tradition and it's not monolithic, and that we should never look at these things as absolute, and we shouldn't be afraid to engage in dialogue. But I think we should try to stay away from debate and challenging, because there is an adab al-ikhtilaf that is really important that we establish in the foundation of this field, and recognize that what's beautiful about this tradition, the Islamic tradition, is that there are multiple right answers. This is what my teacher always said to me. There are multiple pathways, and it doesn't mean that just because one is right, that the other is wrong. There are different vantage points, there are different perspectives, and we need to allow that while still being attached to first principles and understanding what is agreed amongst the ulama. But within that, there's a lot of room. And so we should allow for these rich dialogues and conversations, and see it as the blessing of there being diversity. You know, the diversity in our ummah is a mercy. And so we hope that this is just one contribution in many more to come, inshallah, and that this field develops, ideas develop. Maybe some of the things that are published, that people publish, maybe they change their mind as they develop their research, or they discover new information. That's also part of the plan, and it's part of the, you know, if you look at Imam al-Ghazali, everybody's talking about Ghazali this, Ghazali that. Ghazali said this. Ghazali didn't say one thing that was the same throughout his lifetime. It developed over time, and you can't really understand the full picture of what Imam al-Ghazali thought without looking from beginning to end how his thought evolved and where he wound up at the end. Same with Dr. Malik Badri. A lot of times people reference his earlier works or his works in certain times and don't really realize that he came to a fruition of his thought, and that we have to allow that Allah is Rabb. Allah is the one who brings into existence and continues and sustains his existence, and Allah is the one speaking through any scholar, if they're speaking any truth. And so Allah uses each individual and groups of people as a collective way of bringing his fadl into the world. And so we need to see it from that bigger picture and see the multiple dimensions of reality, and allow for this, and have grace and mercy as we approach all of these different thoughts and theories, and recognize that really the only theory is the Quranic paradigm, and Allah is the one teaching us everything that is true.
MashaAllah, Dr. Abdallah, such an eloquent way to summarize our book launch today. May Allah bless you for your excellent scholarly work, and also as a clinician, as one of the leaders of the field of Islamic psychology. Dr. Rothman, we're very indebted to you and your excellent work. I want to thank Dr. Amber Haque and Dr. Rothman for their amazing work. I want to thank Dr. Mustafa Mertel, or Hojjam as we say in Turkish, for his amazing Easy, Dr. Jamila, for your excellent work in Malaysia. We love Malaysia, we love Turkey, we love UK, we love US, we love the world. Thank you, Dr. Rabia, for your amazing work as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to unite in the adab al-ikhtilaf, as Dr. Rothman said. We as ISIP believe in adab al-ikhtilaf, and that's why we're trying to unite brothers and sisters, practitioners, scholars, and students from all over the world. Even though people might have different approaches and different ways of applying or doing scholarly work, we're all united in Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to thank all the participants, all brothers and sisters who joined us today, for your excellent questions, reflections, remarks, and for your excellent work. We're very inspired by all of you. This is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not our movement. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's movement. This is your movement, brothers and sisters. Without your participation and contributions, we will not have this beautiful movement of Islamic psychology, in all honesty, and ISIP as well. This is a blessing from your devotions, dear brothers and sisters in Khidmah. I want to thank all of my colleagues, Sister Fatima Ahmed, Sister Shireen Ismail, Sister Rafa Sabah, Sister Madia Shakil, Sister Nadira, Sister Eileen, and all other brothers and sisters. There are so many brothers and sisters. I'm so sorry for not mentioning all the names. I just mentioned as names that I'm seeing here. Brother Ahmed Tahan, Sister Aya, Sister Zulekha, Sister Aisha, Sister Amatullah, all of our brothers and sisters who are doing an amazing work in all of our local and regional chapters all over the world, all of our task forces doing great translations, curriculum development, research, halaqats, brother to brother, sister to sister groups, peer to peer support groups, etc. We're at your service as ISIP, and from the behalf of ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology, and IAIP, the International Association of Islamic Psychology, we want to thank you all for joining us today. Please keep supporting the movement of Islamic psychology, and there is a lot of things going on, a lot of resources, a lot of universities, institutions that are starting programs. So check that out and be part of the movement. We need more research, brothers and sisters. We need more, as also Dr. Amber and Dr. Abdallah alluded to, more people writing books, more people developing new modalities. Don't shy away. We all have a responsibility, and to, as Dr. Amber said, shift the paradigm of mainstream psychology and root it in an indigenous approach towards psychology from an Islamic epistemological and ontological approach is very necessary. So there are different ways to do it, and I think that you know best how you can do it in your context, and to do something that is culturally congruent as well for your context. Because even though we're united in Quran and Sunnah, we're different as Muslims from an ethnical point of view and culture point of view. That's why, for instance, one thing that we in ISIP have seen and that we recommend you guys to do research in is how can we do cross-culture psychology from Islamic paradigm? How can we do intercultural perspectives and intercultural communication from an Islamic psychological paradigm? Because Islam is nothing homogenic. Islam is something that is rooted in diversity, but unity and Tawheed and Quran and Sunnah. But the application can be according to multiplexity and multiplicity. So please reflect upon these questions. Some of you have been asking about, do we have research in neurodiversity from Islamic psychological point of view? Not that much. So you can be the leader, brothers and sisters, in creating that research or that awareness. We actually have a task force in ISIP for neurodiversity. So you guys are more than welcome to reach out to us as well with regards to that. And we will ask for the support from all the scholars in this panel today and from the IAIP and other institutions like IAUM to support us in doing this research under their excellent leadership in this association. So from the behalf of all of my colleagues, from the behalf of ISIP and IAIP, we want to thank you all. And please buy the book and support. And we will speak with Dr. Amber and Dr. Rothman how we can disseminate the book in the e-book version, inshallah, so that it can